very good evening. Thank you for joining us here on this Tuesday. You're watching India Tonight. I'm Nivedna Prabhu, and with me is my colleague Sumita Kare. For the next 1 hour, we of course take you to the top stories. But let's begin with our main focus tonight. US President Donald Trump's proposed peace plan for Gaza has in fact received widespread reactions. The US president has set a 96-hour deadline for Hamas and said that it's going to be a very sad end if Hamas does not agree to that particular peace plan. Now, Hamas, meanwhile, is said to be reviewing Trump's peace plan for Gaza. Prime Minister Modi, too, welcomed the development, calling it a pathway to peace in West Asia. However, let's tell you, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu continues to oppose the Palestinian statehood. All this leads to the big question. Will Israel-Hamas give peace a chance? That's what we discussed tonight. In fact, we decode a lot more. But before we dive into that, let's listen to what US President Donald Trump had said about his peace plan on Gaza and Hamas, talking to reporters moments back.
Well, we're going to do about 3 or 4 days. We'll see how it is. All of the Arab countries are signed up. The Muslim countries are all signed up. Israel's all signed up. We're just waiting for Hamas. And Hamas is either going to be doing it or not. And if it's not, it's going to be a very sad end.
All right, so the president sounding very bullish on that war plan, that peace plan that he and his team has devised. But the big question is, will the future of Gaza change, and will there be lasting peace in the Middle East? In fact, ladies and gentlemen, to discuss this big story, we're now joined by a stellar panel of experts. Joining us now is Lev Aaron. He's joining us from Haifa. Also joining us is Sunil Subramaniam. He's a market expert, and of course, Adil Nazranian. He's a senior fellow at Gold Institute for International Strategy. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and ma'am, for taking the time out. Adil, I beg your pardon for taking the time out and speaking to us here on ET Now. So let me come to you first, Adil. What does the 20-point plan really mean for all the sides involved? Can the war end? And most importantly, out of this 20-point peace plan, who gains the most?
Thank you so much. It's great to be on with you today. Yes, I am a woman. Thank you for that. I definitely think that this 21-point peace plan is achievable, but it's really going to depend largely on de-radicalization of Gaza. Whether or not that can happen depends largely on the people, depends on Hamas, and honestly, the Palestinian Authority, believe it or not, over the West Bank, to kind of do what they can to also make it a reality. I think that everyone who's seen it, it was first reported by Times of Israel. It's de-radicalization of Gaza, the redevelopment for Gazans, ceasefire, IDF troop withdrawal, return of hostages, prisoner release. I mean, there's 21 points, including a surge in humanitarian aid. I think that of all of these, the one that sticks out to me the most, to be honest with you, is the fact that Hamas has to be excluded from governance. There should be no role whatsoever for Hamas in Gaza's governance, and to de-radicalize the region. I think those two things are going to be massive. I think at the end of the day, honestly, Palestinians are the ones who will benefit the most from this. And of course, Israelis, because they're not going to, there'll be a surge in humanitarian aid. Palestinians will no longer be used by terrorist organization Hamas as their tools of oppression, and to be used as basically human shields. And I think that you're going to see a lot of de-escalation in tensions between those two civilizations, between the Israelis and the Palestinians. And frankly, I think that there's been a two-state solution is the only viable solution for peace in the region, and it's constantly been the Palestinian Authority that's been rejecting it. I really, really hope that this time around we can find a true pathway following the 21-point plan, which is brilliantly laid out, logically laid out, common sense, to be able to arrive at a two-state solution for once and for all, for everyone, all the people who are really depending on it.
Right, Adele. In fact, you make very imperative points in your opening remark. In fact, we'll come back to you on that front. But Lev, let me come to you. Do you see this as a realistic window for negotiation, or is escalation inevitable?
Israel is a loyal state in the American bloc. So the capacity of Netanyahu to resist or to say no to a Trump plan is almost zero. On the other hand, Netanyahu has a far-right bloc inside his government. So among the right-wing Israelis, this plan is not very popular. So we should not envy Netanyahu at this point. Netanyahu does not want a Palestinian state. Netanyahu believes that the Palestinian Authority is a venal and corrupt entity, and there is no use even speaking about Palestinian state, but this is actually what the 20 points are saying. So for Netanyahu's government, it is not an easy plan. Since we don't have a consensus, basic domestic consensus about the war in Gaza, this is the best plan Netanyahu could get from Trump.
Right, Mr. Aaron, and we'll come back to you on that point. Adele, I'll come to you and ask you another question. And Mr. Subramaniam, thank you very much for patiently waiting. We'll come back to you in just a bit. But let me take a follow-up question from Adele. The point that you made about, a two-state solution. But can any peace plan really succeed if one of the key players fundamentally rejects the idea of Palestinian statehood?
No, of course not. And I have to pose that same question on the other side. Even if the Palestinian Authority and let's say, the powers that be in Gaza would like to have a viable two-state solution, their refusal to recognize Israel's right to exist is an inherent problem that has been there from the start. And so I have to say, even though this 21-point plan is very logical, as I said, common sense, it's very achievable, the fact of the matter remains that the Palestinian Authority has continuously refused to recognize Israel as a Jewish state and its existence. And so from one side, of course, Israel is going to, the current leader, Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister, is going to also not want to recognize a Palestinian state. That's why I don't know, although it's a very, altruistic, it's a very, a common sense way to lead things forward. You're absolutely correct. If one side or both sides don't believe the other side actually should exist, then it's going to be very difficult to have that process take place and take hold tangibly.
Absolutely. To navigate that would be difficult. It would be a pain point as well as to the way you're looking at it. But Adele, we'll come back to you on that particular point. But Mr. Subramaniam, like Sumita said, not only thank you for joining us, but also being extremely patient while we've had the opportunity to come to you. Let's talk about the fact that with what we're looking at here, in a sense, would it trigger volatility in investor sentiment?
I think it will calm it for the time being because this is a peaceful way forward. And I think it's an attempt to solve a problem. But I think the key issue here is that we are not talking about the main people involved, which is the Hamas. I mean, the rest of the world can agree to anything. The Arab states can agree to anything. Israel can accept anything. The Palestinian Authority can accept it. But Hamas represents the radical Palestinians. And the problem with this 20-point program is that it doesn't give any carrot to Hamas on the way forward. Now, unless, and as you're familiar in India, right, we have dealt with the Mizos, we have dealt with the Mizo rebels, the Assam liberation. The only way forward is for that extreme element to form a part of the government. And that's my only disappointment in this, that you're saying that Hamas will not form a part of anything. Now, all their lives, they have fought for what? Just to walk away from this. So it's not that easy and that simple, and that will dawn on the world soon enough in the matter of 72, 96 hours, and then these whole things will come again. See, that's the problem with trying to do a patchwork, trying to solve a year-long problem over just 3 days with a 20-point program. Unless you give legitimacy to Hamas in a post, this world, in terms of some power, that all these years they've struggled for what? Just to walk away from this. And the fact that they're losing people or to the Israeli attack, all that hasn't bothered them. So to that extent, Hamas is all the people who are in Hamas, the supporters of Hamas, what's their future way forward? How do they get it? So you have to have a viable thing for them to have a legitimate existence. So I think that's been ignored in this whole exercise.
Okay.
We're talking about everybody except the person who is the main issue. And so you have to offer some carrot to them for the future. Otherwise, there's going to be no solution. Why would they agree? So that's my limited point that I want to put across to the panel.
Right. Right, Mr. Subramaniam. In fact, let me take that point across to Mr. Aaron. Mr. Aaron, would you agree with what Mr. Subramaniam is essentially saying that, it remains to be seen how the Hamas is going to respond and if there is enough in the deal for Hamas to actually come and sit at the table?
I totally disagree with Sunilji. I don't think Hamas is like the Kuki Meiti or the Mizo or the Nagas. It is like Pehelgam. In a way for Hamas, there is not a single square meter of Israel, which is Israel. For him, for Hamas, everything is Palestine. And in this sense, Hamas has to lose the battle. This is what Israel thinks. This is what Egypt thinks. This is what also Jordan thinks. Sometimes they will say it loudly. Sometimes it will be like, very quietly. But I would not compare the Indian, let's say, Northeast to Hamas.
I have to say, I think in that regard, if I may jump in there, Mr. Aran and Mr. Subramanian are actually agreeing. I think President
Heather, go
Trump.
ahead.
Thank you. I think President Trump would not make the same mistake that he made, let's say, arguably, in giving the Taliban a seat at the table in Afghanistan, which look at the situation now. Giving Hamas a seat at the table will all but guarantee an absolute catastrophic future for any Palestinian. Everyone knows that. And so I don't think, I agree with you then, both of you, that Hamas should absolutely, undoubtedly not have a seat at this table. And they absolutely have to be, they have to be removed from the equation completely and totally. And frankly, I must say, unfortunately, I think that there are some corrupt leaders within the West Bank, and we're aware of this, who would rather pay shahada salaries to people who are willing, not themselves, by the way, to kill themselves, but to put their own people in the line of death and to pay their families salaries in order to continue benefiting off of the blood and tears and bones of their own Palestinian people. And this is the difference between one side and the other. The other side doesn't do that. And that's what has to be utterly and irrevocably showcased to the entire world, and especially at the United Nations. So I think that's the biggest issue here. And I absolutely have full confidence that President Trump will not give Hamas a seat at this table, nor should he.
And Mr. Subramaniam, would you want to come in and counter that?
Absolutely. No, all I'm trying to say is if Hamas doesn't accept this, we are back to war, right? What's the point of the whole deal? He's given 72 hours and 96 hours to Hamas to accept it. Now, tell me, put yourself in Hamas's shoes. I'm not talking for Hamas or against Hamas. I'm saying, why should Hamas agree to this? Unless you feel that they are hurting from the losses and they are looking for a fig leaf to come out of it and be offered something. If that's a perception, then great, but I don't think so. So why would at all Hamas agree to this whole 20-point plan? We have got to look at it from that perspective, right? I mean, when you're looking at a hijacker and you're negotiating with him, you have to give the hijacker something for the negotiation. I'm just saying, I agree that they shouldn't be at the table. I agree that they are a very illegitimate organization. I agree that, but in a post-war world, when they give up their arms and they give up their fight, why would you expect them to agree to this unless in a post-war world there is some legitimacy, something to show for the years that they have put into this? All I'm trying to say is that if you want a solution, you have to take all the parties to the table in a post scenario. They don't need to be at the negotiating table. I fully agree there that they don't need to be brought to the table, but I'm just saying, do you seriously expect Hamas to just accept this and walk away saying, oh, thank you, Mr. Trump, thank you, Mr. Netanyahu, you've given us a great deal? Certainly not, right?
But it remains to be seen, Mr. Subramaniam, remains to be seen how Donald Trump is going to handle this, given the fact that he's given Hamas 3-4 days to reply to this peace plan, and he's also warned of a sad end. So remains to be seen how that's going to unfold. But let me come to you, Mr. Lev. Now, many say that this perhaps is a unilateral deal. Some geopolitical experts have stated that view. They say because there is no clear plan for withdrawal of troops from Gaza, and Israel could perhaps reactivate the war after receiving hostages, and that guarantees have not really been given. Would you agree to that point of view and that concern that's been raised by geopolitical experts?
There is very little appetite in Israel for a war in Gaza. Gaza was a swamp for us since 1967. If we send our children to get killed in Gaza, it means that we have no other chance. There is no popularity within the DESI domestic politics in Israel for a Gaza war if we don't have to go into this war. So in this sense, I don't think that the Palestinians in Gaza need a lot of guarantees. The best guarantee is that our appetite to be in Gaza is almost zero.
May I add something?
Right. In fact, as you pointed out, Lev, let me take this to you, Mr. Subramaniam. Given the kind of reactions that we're also seeing that has come in, focusing on what Prime Minister Modi also has said, calling for a pathway to peace. In terms of that, messaging, and also from your perspective, how are we looking at that?
I think, like I said, we all have a duty to support the peace process. Bodies are there, hostages are there, families are suffering. So, any way for peace, we have to support it. All I was trying to say is that in trying to derive a peace solution, the main antagonist there, however unpopular, however bad he is, right? You have to give him, either you force him saying that you have no choice, accept it, otherwise you're exterminated, which is what Mr. Trump is hinting. That saying if you don't accept it in 96, all hell will break loose, which means is he going to unleash American weapons there? Is he going to go and drop bombs from American bombers? We don't know that. But I'm just saying that the pathway to peace is a very noble attempt to try and solve it. The entire world is supportive of it. All this is fine. But the point is that, and we have to give this a chance. So he's given it a few days now. Let's wait through those days. So I think that everybody has positively supported, and that's excellent. I think the whole moral force of the world, he wants a solution to this war. And I think that for Israel, it's very important that they get those hostages back. So I think that imperative for Israel also to push through is very clear. And so I have no doubt that peace must be given a chance, and that's been given. Fair enough. All I was trying to say was that if you really wanted to succeed in any negotiation, that's why I compared it to a hijacker on a plane, right? You go and what do you talk to the hijacker? And we again, India has had experiences of this. It's not that the hijacker is at all, we're talking on side of the hijacker. But the point of the matter is that viable solution in any kind of conflict involves all parties, however good, bad, ugly they were. That is my point. But otherwise, I think we all have to support this peace process and
Right,
not
Mr.
jeopardize.
Subramaniam, I'll in fact ask you another question. I'll ask you another question because it remains to be seen how this peace plan is going to play out given the kind of timelines that we're working with. But from an India point of view, is it possible to agree to Trump's peace proposal without giving up India's position on the two-state solution?
I think so, because see, India is one of those unique countries which has a good relationship with both sides of the table. Right? We have an excellent relationship with Israel. We have an excellent relationship with the Palestinian world too. We have always maintained that talks are the way forward. We have not tilted to one side or the other. And in fact, I think the NDA government has specially got a very close relationship with Israel. So I think that anything that Israel is agreeable to, right, I think India will be very happy with and will support it. The only thing is there's a radical element within Israel which I'm not sure has yet supported Netanyahu in this peace deal. Mr. Lev can probably answer that there is opposition within Israel from the far right there, which is another factor to be considered. But I think from India's perspective, I think peace here is absolutely a priority. We will support all efforts there in that process.
I want to add something, if I may. Diplomacy never works until it does. But I have to say, more often than not, it only works after brute strength. And that's the way to reset the balance of power. And you never are able to achieve peace if you're negotiating from a place of weakness. The people who are negotiating from a place and a position of
I think we
I
lost
seem
it.
to have lost that line with Ms. Adele, but for the moment, thank you very much, Mr. Subramaniam, Lev, and of course Adele for taking the time out and speaking to us here on 80 Now. Remains to be seen what the new next few steps are going to be so far as arriving at a peace deal, a peace solution in the West Asia conflict as far as that is concerned, and whether that's achievable, the kind of hurdles that we're going to see or not going to see, that remains to be seen, Nivedna. So that's the big story, but moving on to some other stories that we're tracking this evening on